Hi there. This is a Year 1 macroeconomics topic video asking the question, what is globalization? I think the key point to note is that globalization is a process, it's not an event. And it's a process in which national economies in the world have become increasingly integrated and increasingly interdependent. So in that sense, globalization is a dynamic process, and also crucially, it's not necessarily inevitable. The OECD defines globalization as the geographic dispersion of industrial and service activities, for example, research and development, sourcing of inputs, production and distribution, and the cross-border networking of companies, for example, through joint ventures and the sharing of assets. That's a really detailed definition of globalization. I think The Economist had it better a few years ago. They said that globalization was the death of distance, the shortening of time frames and logistics frames between countries. Now, there are many ways that we can focus on the aspects or characteristics of globalization. Remember that globalization is a process that involves deeper economic integration between countries and regions of the world. So what are some of the aspects of or measurements of globalization we can use? First of all, in many countries, but not all, the ratio of trade to GDP is going up. Countries becoming ever more dependent on trade in goods and services. Secondly, we're seeing significant increases in transfers of capital between nations. And that includes, for example, foreign direct investment, or FDI, by transnational corporations, the growing influence of sovereign wealth funds. According to recent data, 51 of the largest economies in the world are corporations, and the top 500 multinational corporations account for nearly 3/4 of world trade. Another aspect of globalization is the development of global brands, including a growing number from emerging countries, such as Alibaba and China Mobile. These brands serve markets both in higher and lower middle income countries. A fundamental aspect of globalization is what's often termed the deeper specialization of labour. So we see outsourcing and offshoring of production and the growth of complicated global supply chains. So let's take, for example, the iPhone. The product was conceived and designed in Silicon Valley. The software has been enhanced oftentimes by engineers working in India. And most iPhones are assembled in China and Taiwan by multinational companies such as Foxconn. I think this is a really important aspect of globalization. We're now seeing the emergence of new global supply chains and the emergence of new trade routes and investment routes. For example, China's new Silk Road initiative. This idea of global value chains is incredibly important in the context of globalization. The iPad is a great example of this. It's said made in China on the box, but actually when you pay a price for your Apple iPad, only around 5% of the retail price is actually paid for Chinese economic activity. Indeed, companies in South Korea take a bigger percentage for supplying and installing the components. So this is a really important aspect of globalization. Here's a survey of some of the most globalized countries in the world. They use 3 dimensions of globalization: economic, social and political, as well as taking into account actual economic flows, economic restrictions and data and information, for example. And the UK in this case ranked 19th, just above France by the way, but countries such as Ireland, Holland, Belgium and Austria and Singapore, they were ranked amongst the world's most globalised countries in 2015. Globalisation is leading to significant changes in the balance of economic power in the world. My final chart in this short topic video shows the share of global GDP in 2015 for a selection of countries. The data shows the percentage of global national output adjusted for purchasing power parity. In other words, the dollar value of each country's national output is adjusted to take into account estimated differences in the cost of living for a selected basket of consumer goods and services. According to this measure, China in 2015 just nudged ahead of the United States as the world's biggest economy. On other measures, it's the second largest economy in the world. On this measure, it's the biggest. However, if we were to look at per capita national income, China remains a relatively poor country compared to advanced nations. But the crucial point from this chart is that globalization is a dynamic process, and the centre of gravity in the world economy is shifting inexorably to emerging economies. So in this short video, we've asked the question, what is globalization? And the key summary point is that it's a process of increasing integration and interdependence between countries. We'll look at further debates about the costs and benefits of globalization in a separate topic video. But for the moment, thanks for joining me, and check out some more videos on our YouTube channel and of course on the TutorTube website.